All right, video number 2. Um, this is just going to be purely focused on front end, the full front end workflow. I'm not quite sure how long this video is going to take. I'm hoping it doesn't take too long. If it gets long, we'll do part 1 and part 2, but I do have some notes, but I'm just gonna try go through everything as it comes along because I'm gonna try to make this screen live. So bear with me. But you guys can skip past stuff if stuff is loading and whatever. But we're gonna go through like a full implementation of we last left off by creating that friends screen. So we got a blank screen, empty canvas, we're ready to work. Then we also are gonna go through all the fundamentals you need for making a screen from the front end. So this should help you guys to complete the sprint task. But to get started, let's go over what it is to be in the front end, right? In the front end, you guys want to be focusing on 2 things. So stateless and stateful. This is what's going to work best for us moving forward. As a front-end developer, you will have responsibilities to maintain the design system, make sure all the components that are in Figma are up to date with the components in the code base. So design system is really important because everything we do when we make the screens, as you'll see, is from the design system. We never want to make stuff new on a screen that we're making, on a page, let me say. You want to make it in the design system first, make sure it matches the Figma, and then we just call those components that we made onto the screen. So you guys will kind of get a taste of how that's done as we build this screen out. I haven't done this in a while, so probably use my agent to help me make some of these to make the screen. But yeah, please just remember design system is really important, and then we call the design system in the front end to make sure that what we're building, we can then have it unified across the whole app. That's why we have the design system, so everything in the app is consistent. So to start off with, let's go to the Figma and go look at our screen, right? Me personally, when I look at a screen, I look for a few things. I just kind of break it down. So make sure you're in dev mode when you look at the screen. So you got design mode, and then you got dev mode as well. So this is dev mode. Make sure you read your annotations to kind of, okay, this is going to be the Rive animation. So we just want a visual placeholder. So when we do get those Rive animations, we'll put them over here. I see a top bar, so a top nav bar, okay? I see some text, 2 buttons, so fairly simple screen, especially because we have a design system where a lot of these components are already there. It's all about calling those things accurately to match what is on the screen. In the future, not all the components are going to be in the design system, so it's not always going to be this easy. It's kind of going to be a little bit easier because I've made a lot of components already in the design system, but as we grow and Ethan makes new components, as a front-end team, we'll need to be up to date with the most recent components that are made in the Figma, and then we'll use those components to build screens. So there's going to be a bit of work in keeping up with the components that Ethan makes, because he does make quite a few components, sometimes updates them and things of that nature. So that's something you guys will have to think about too. But all these components should be in the design system, and the screens we chose them because all the components in those screens will be in the design system. So looking at the screen, I see 4 parts. I see top nav bar, I see a middle part where I need to make a visual placeholder, I see a body, I see a button, and a button. So I just break them down one by one, top down, and I'm just gonna try and build it exactly as I see it, starting with this part, then this middle part, this section, and then my 2 buttons. First thing is you want to click on this, right? When you click on this, it kind of pulls it up on the side, and then on the side here, it has the things you need to know about this. So it looks like we have a component here, right? Component information, its page title. If we view more, we can see that left icon is false, right icon is false, invite friends is the title, true, and what type is it? Type page. So one thing I have noticed is that this is a new component, right? I don't want to get into it right now, but we will have to refactor the top nav bars to match the new nav bars. The top nav bars I have are the old nav bars that we used to have, but these ones have been refactored, and they use a single constructor, which we'll have to implement in the code base. And then there's many toggles, so it's like it can shape shift. You have one constructor, and then it can shape shift to what you want it to look like, if that makes sense. So this component, as you can see here, I'm gonna go to design system. As you can see, this component is the same component that we're looking at right here. It has many different ways it can be. It can have an icon, sometimes it doesn't. So there's many different ways you can, have this component. And I always encourage you guys to go on the side here and explore component behavior. So see how it's supposed to work, because that kind of gives you a visualization of how it should work in the code. Like for example, when I see this, I'm thinking constructor, parameters, okay, type. So what type is it? Subpage, so that's a parameter, page with profile, subpage with profile, subpage with button. So parameter, that takes in different types. Sometimes it takes in a title, takes in words for that title, left, so you can toggle, see how it looks, right, gone, true, false. Let's look at the different types of pages. We got subpages, so it looks like the text is a little bit different there. We got subpage with profile, subpage with button, and then now this one has more things that we can call. So okay, so explore this stuff, because this is going to be the foundation of how we code it when we're building components. Right now we're not building any new components. These components are already there, so good for us. But we'll have a video just for building components next. But this is what we're calling. This is the component that we want to make first. So what we need to figure out is, what is this component in the code base? Because we need to call this and make sure that we can get it at the top. So I look at it, and then I'm kind of just seeing, okay, what do I see on the side? Different values. Okay, make sure you read this. Padding 16, bottom 12, left 16. Okay, we got the padding, understood. Okay, so let's start off with the top bar. The equivalent of this in Flutter is a top nav bar. So if we go to the design system quickly over here, in the design system we have components, just like in Figma, and one of the components is in the navigation folder, and our component is the Socialdeck top navigation bar. Okay, now as I mentioned, it's a little different to what we had in the Figma. Right here we have 6 different constructors, so that's a potential refactor. Instead of having 6 different constructors for every new nav bar, we just have one constructor that can shapeshift. So potential refactor over there. But the one we want is the one with just the title. So if you see here, it says title only. I need to start zooming in actually. How do I do that? Is that it? Oh, that was command. Okay. So we want this one. The one we're interested in is really title only. That's the one we want. Title only is the nav bar we want, because if we look at the Figma, all it has is just the title, right? So that's what we'll call for in our code. So just keep that in mind. Socialdeck nav bar title only. Okay. So let's go back to our page that we had made. Now, as we talked about in our page, all we really need to start off with is our scaffold, right? So we got our scaffold, and let's see. And as we mentioned before, in Flutter, it's like widgets inside of widgets inside of widget. So the build method is a widget, and then it returns a scaffold, and inside that widget, which is the scaffold, we'll have other widgets inside of it. So the first thing we want to do is, let's start off by let's add a body, and this is good. We want to add the body first, and then once we add the body, we want to add the safe area. Safe area is actually an important tool we use, it keeps the content below the status bar. So it keeps the content below like this stuff right here. So if you look at the 29, like the time, it keeps our content from going above here. So super important to always add your safe area. So I'll go ahead and add my safe area. I do not want the text. And then in Flutter, you'll have many different types of things you can call when you have children. So making a widget inside a widget is like making, they call it children. So you can have a child, and then inside that child you can have children. That's kind of how they do it. But think about it in that way. So you got the child, and that child has children, and then those children have children. But long story short, wow, we're already at 10 minutes. Long story short, you can have your children in different views. You can have your children as a column where you have like lots of stuff. You can have your children as a row where you'll have children this way. You can have your children as a single scrollable list, whatever you want. For our case, we want our stuff to be in a column because it's like we're reading it this way. So everything is going to be stacked in a column, right? If it's a lot of content, we'd want a scrollable list view. Okay, so those are some stuff you guys need to, start to think about when you're front-end people. How do we want this data to be shown? Do we want it scrollable? Do we just want it static? Do you want rows? You can have rows and then column and then rows. Lots of stuff, lots of abilities to customize things in Flutter. So let's go for the column that they gave us. Was pretty ideal. And then in that column, what we'll do is we're just going to make the cross alignment to be stretch, because we're going to be working on a few things in this column. This type of stuff you just kind of get used to as you code things. So you'll just get used to it. But then inside there, oh, love this. It's already knowing what I want to do. Inside there, I'm just gonna tab this real quick, and then I'm gonna remove some stuff. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. Okay, so inside here, we have our child, which is the column, and then inside the column, we're gonna have children, right? Let's close this real quick. Nope, that's the wrong one. Okay, so our first child in the column. So we have a class, we're gonna have children. Our first child at the top is gonna be the Socialdeck top navbar. So we're calling that component from the design system. And the reason it's having an error is because we haven't imported it yet, right? So first thing, what I love about this is if you press the, the space or the period after you write this, it will show you all the available ones we have. Okay, first we need to import the library. All I'm importing here is our design system, okay? One second. Import our design system index. Flutter package. Sorry, one second. It's actually the social. Yeah. So this is a super important import because this is what's going to give you access to all those components we've made in the past. So you want to make sure you have that in your imports. And then, so yeah, as I was mentioning before, I'm just going to remove this. So let's say you're typing in, you want to call that component, right? So nav bar. Once you type in bar, click on this dot, and then you'll have all your options here that you can see. Okay, so we've got those are the different constructors. We just want the constructor that's just the title only. So we call that one. What's the title gonna be? Invite friends. Let's make sure it's the same as what we had in Figma. Okay, invite friends. Okay, perfect. Now always test, run, test and run, test and run. So I'm gonna go ahead and reload. And okay, looks like we got the first thing there. Nice. So we got invite friends over there. We got invite friends over here. Okay. So we got the first thing working. Now we're gonna build the second part. Second part is a visual placeholder. This visual placeholder looks like the checkered box which we have in our assets. I'll talk to you guys a little bit about that in a second. But another thing I like to look at here as well is padding is super important, and also adding padding, because on the sides it's 16 as well for the padding. So let me maybe pause this video because it's 15 minutes long already. So let's pause this video and then I'll try to move a little bit faster for the new content that's coming up.